uh, 9 minutes to 9 a.m. We continue with the show this morning, and it's a time of the week where we bring you Crime Talk with eThewini Secure, the chairperson of eThewini Secure, once again with us, Imtiaz Syed. Imtiaz, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Imtiaz, Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, Imtiaz, we appreciate you taking time out this morning once again. We're talking this morning about CPF. We're talking about the importance, but more importantly, the elections of forums this year.
Correctly so. The last provincial, well, we're talking about KZN here, and the last provincial election we had was in 2017. So that brings us to a 5-year term currently. So there's been a provincial instruction that went out to all 184 stations in the province to run their sub-forum elections during the months of February. March we'll go into districts, and then probably just before June, we'll probably do an alignment of those structures into the provincial CPF once more.
Yes. Now, let's just talk about the relevance of these elections, because I think this is extremely important for us to understand, because we know CPFs have been given recognition. They play a very, very important role in the community in more ways than one. And just to once again emphasize the importance and the relevance of these elections or forums.
I think the one word that encompasses community policing forums for me, and I've always said this, was access. Access to SAPS through that forum is something that's very important if you are a community leader and you represent your community by any nature. And what we also need to understand is that you don't have to come from a crime fighting background or be sort of in the space of crime fighting per se in its physical terms. It's more a thinking tank. It's more a space by which engagements happen in boardrooms and that kind of thing, to understand the dynamic of the community that's supposed to be policed, understanding the types of crimes that exist within that community, and then relaying that information off, obviously within the ambits of the structure that you keep to SAPS to address those issues. And that's the importance of CPFs in its generalization, if you know what I mean.
Well, certainly. And also, I think sometimes when one looks at where we are as a country in terms of crime, in terms of strategy, and we know at this point in time the police services that have been stretched to their limits, and there are huge constraints. And the fact that CPFs are filling in a void, or they're filling a huge gap. And I think this is where communities need to appreciate, they need to realize what an important function CPFs actually play in their community. And we not only talk about crime, because you and I have spoken so much about many other things, about service delivery, which is another critical issue that impacts on communities and societies.
Yeah, you know, it is true, formatism doesn't generally relate to one thing in society. I mean, ultimately, there's two things that affect us. It's service delivery and crime that affects us in this country. And through these sorts of platforms, it's not only, you don't have to say, okay, I'm only on the CPF and I'm not part of the civic or not part of the rates. If you're an activist in society, you're going to do or try and be in all of these different platforms that brings change to your community. Now, with that being said, we must understand that policing certain things within our community, like, for example, gender-based violence, how do you expect SAPS to now police that when it's a societal issue? It's something that we need to address. It's communities getting together to start addressing those issues around youth, drug-related issues and all of that. How do we really expect in its entirety SAPS to come and resolve a child who's being protected by their parents and are in denial that their child is actually on drugs? How do we now approach a situation where a woman is being abused by her own husband and she has no other way except staying in that marriage or in that relationship because she has nowhere else to go? How do we expect police to police that? These are societal issues, and this is where the Community Police Forum comes in. So everyone has their part to play, in essence. SAPS has their part to play in terms of law enforcement and making sure that when a crime is committed, it actually gets dealt with and dealt with in its proper way. But Also, on the side of community, we need to start engaging ourselves in how do we bring up our children, how do we interact with each other, what are the societal problems that we need to engage on, and how do we now bring best practice into play for a better community and a better future for all of us to live in, if you know what I mean.
Yes, it was just a question and just a thought while you were talking, just to
Hmm.
understand the level of engagement between the CPF and the SAPS, particularly when it comes to community issues, when it comes to some of the societal issues, like you mentioned, gender violence or drugs and those type of things, and just in
Yeah.
terms of SEPs and their reliance on CPFs to provide them with the type of information that they require. What level of engagement is there?
Okay, so very quickly, we need to understand SAPS first. You see, the most important thing about getting into any sort of space is to understand how the space actually functions, right? So in SAPS, there are two parts. One is VISPOL. That means any member of SAPS that wears a uniform, they fall under visible policing, meaning that you can actually see that that's a policeman, right? And then you get the detectives, which falls under the branch, right? And when you're speaking to them, they don't necessarily wear uniform or are interactive with community per se in terms of your first front or your first space that you see of SAPS. They're there to investigate and do things. So that's understanding police in its very general brief form. There are many different organisms within SAPS that deal with different levels of crime in different spaces, depending on what it is, specialized units and that kind of thing. And I don't really want to get into that right here because we don't have the time. But when we're talking about community engagement, it's important for us to understand that the community meets with the management of SAPS once a month. Now, the community in general, everyone, every single individual living within the station area falls automatically under the community police forum. You make up the forum. The people that live within an area around a policing precinct, that fall within that policing precinct, make up the community police forum. You then go to these elections and you nominate 9 people to represent you as an executive committee at station level, representing your entire community. That takes up like people like myself, who I chair now one station, right? We represent you in all the problems that you have in terms of policing, because you can't expect police to be talking to an entire community. They talk through the leadership of the community, and you then elect that leadership into these platforms. Now, once you get into the station and you become the chairperson or any other nominated person, you then go and you sit once a month in a meeting which is called now the district. Before it used to be clusters. So in KZN we used to have 17 clusters. It's now 11 districts. So if you become a chairperson of, for example, a police station in eThewini district, eThewini district or eThewini cluster previously used to be made up of 7 stations, of which I was the cluster chairperson. So basically, there were 7 chairpersons who nominated me and elected me as their chairperson, right? Now it's 42 stations that fall within eThewini, and currently we're in engagement as to that is not a manageable number of police stations to be managed within one district. How do we now divide this? And we're looking at participation quota in respect of 184 stations, all of that. So that dynamic is still there for us to discuss. But what we need to understand, when you are in an executive committee of the station, your current link or sitting next to you is the SAPS management of that station. It's sort of a governing body in schools, right? We fall under the Department of Community Safety and Liaison on their community participation side. But the Department of Community Safety and Liaison also has a civilian secretariat for police, which is the direct oversight over SAPS in anything that they do. Whether they provide a service, they're there basically to maintain KPIs and make sure that SAPS does their job, right? So that's a very brief understanding. Now, once you are in an executive committee at the station and you can't resolve issues, even your station commander might not be able to resolve issues like the vehicles are not given back in time and all of those different things. That sits at different levels within SAPS. So what happens is that your chairperson represents your station once a month at the district meeting, where he brings up the challenges that you face at your station which cannot be resolved at the station. So it's sort of like taking it to the head office of the area. So the district office is basically your area manager, right? Now, when you go to the district, obviously we haven't worked out the dynamic exactly how many people will represent each district, which has 42 stations at provincial level. You also get to be going to provincial full board meetings, right? That's once every 3 months. But if you are, and like I've been for the past 5 years, an executive committee member of the province, you meet SAPS management of the province once a month to table the issues that you face within your district, whether it's trio crimes, whether it's hijackings, murder, whether it's petty theft, whether it's rape, whether it's any type of crime. You then escalate that to provincial SAPS to say, we as community have this issue. You are not dealing with it in X, Y, and Z. Can you assist our station commanders in terms of resources that they might need or tools of the trade that they might need in order to resolve these issues? How can we now work together to get this issue resolved? And also you as SAPS engage with us as community to tell us what sort of programs do you want us to put in place on the ground in community without pointing fingers at each other, but problem solving our issues together to say, let us make each other's work and each other's community safe for us all to live in.
Well, Imtiaz, Jazakallah for that, and I'm sure there is a lot more that you and I will basically unpack, and I'm sure from time to time you will be sharing what goes on in some of these meetings, some of the key issues that people need to know. So, inshallah, we look forward to that. But for now, Jazakallah for your time as always. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Wa alaikum salam.
Imtiaz Syed, Chairperson of eThewini, secure with us this morning. We're going to go shortly to Salman Khan, the Chairperson of the South African Kashmiri Action Group, because tomorrow there is an event taking place. I've just been told Salman Khan is not answering, but just to provide you just some information, there is a march that is taking place tomorrow. There's going to be protest action, and that is with regard to the hijab ban in India now. The timing for this is going to be at the Indian Consulate General, and this is going to be in Johannesburg tomorrow after Jummah Salah from 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. And it has been granted according to the Constitution of South Africa. So it is going to be a legal protest action that is going to take place. And the gathering is going to be opposite the Indian Consulate General. And just some rules that they've mentioned. And just to provide you with that information, no children under the age of 18. And this is in accordance with the Public Gathering Act of 205 of 1993. No elders over the age of 80, no firearms, no incitement posters, no hate speech or slogans. The starting time will be at 1:30, dispersing at 2:15, and also just guarding against things like dangerous weapons, damage to common and public property, and also at the same time adhering to COVID-19 regulations. So that is the update that has come through, and this is taking place tomorrow in Johannesburg at the Indian Consul General, where the protest action will be taking place against the hijab ban. The time has just gone 4 minutes past 9. We're going to go for a break, and it's going to be the news with Zahid Jedward, and thereafter at around 9:15 we will be talking about Wayne Duvenage. We're talking about the budget. We also have got Abdul Alim Hamza coming on, and Dr. Qureisha Suleiman.